In the 8th grade, I stood in front of my peers, teachers, and parents and delivered possibly the cheesiest speech as class valedictorian that has ever been delivered. I covered all the classics, from quoting Dr. Seuss's "Oh, the Places You'll Go," to insinuating that as 13-year-olds, we were prepared for whatever the future held for us. Now, just 4 short years later, I'm standing in front of new peers, new friends, and new teachers, and I am here to tell you that at 17 years old, I am a completely different person than I was then. Who I have become during my years here at Appleby has been shaped by the experiences and people who have filled the hours within those front gates and outside of them. In my 4-by-8-foot shoebox of a dorm room, I have a poster hanging just above my bed that says, "Be yourself, choose happy." This poster is a constant reminder that finding happiness within myself was a battle, but I am who I am for a reason. Each one of us has a unique identity, which has been shaped by our own decisions, our beliefs, and our passions. It is only in knowing this identity and understanding yourself that you can be happy with who you are. One of my favorite quotes is, "Your identity is your most valuable possession. Don't lose it." And no, Gandhi didn't say this, or Martin Luther King Jr. It was Violet, the Elastigirl from The Incredibles. The source doesn't make the statement any less true. Don't give up on what makes you yourself, because who you are is valuable and wanted. Being truly happy with who I am and understanding my own identity has been a tumultuous path. I came to Appleby in grade 9 from a small school in Burlington, and I knew a total of 1 person. I think I felt what everyone felt, the nervousness and fear, but excitement for what lay ahead in my next 4 years. But there was also another feeling, one where I was unsure of myself. Deciding to come to Appleby meant that I had to give up being a competitive dancer, something that had been a part of my identity since I was 3 years old in baby ballet. My entire life was dance. It was where my friends were and where I spent hours upon hours of my time. It also meant going to a different school than my brother and sister, who I had always looked for guidance in situations where I felt unsure. Entering grade 9, there was nothing I wanted more than to be accepted. And to do so, I thought I had to change who I was. I remember my dad finding a list I had wrote before my first day of high school, entailing instructions for myself. I told myself not to be so loud. Don't come off like a nerd. And don't try too hard. These were labels others had given me before, ones I didn't want to follow me into high school. In the first few months, I experienced a lot of self-confidence issues. Words like second thought and unwanted became a part of who I thought I was. But I didn't tell anyone. I buried it deep down. I would look in the mirror and be unhappy with what I saw looking back at me. I could pick out every imperfection, every flaw. There was nothing I wanted more than for others to like me. I felt that their acceptance was equal to my self-worth. In the process of trying to be who and what everyone else was, I lost sight of myself. I presented to the world an empty shell of a person. On the inside, I was unsure and unhappy, but to everyone else, I tried to stay positive and act like nothing was wrong. Sometimes I still feel this way. In the face of rejection and pain, it's hard not to criticize yourself and your mistakes. It took me a long time to realize I was unhappy living this facade, I had to reintroduce myself to the world and discover who I was when no one else was around. I broke down the walls of the girl who wanted to please everyone and started living to please myself. I did what I wanted to do, not what others thought was cool. Pulling yourself out of hard times can seem like the whole world is fighting against you, but it is in finding strength in your support system and strength in yourself that you realize you are capable of happiness, even in the darkest of times. Over the past 2 summers, I have had the opportunity to spend my time up north at Muskoka Woods Summer Camp. I have been attending Muskoka since I was 10, following my brother and sister who were also patrons there. Each year, the camp has a summer-long theme. Last summer, as if by fate, the theme was, "Who are you?" I had the opportunity to see a new side of myself there, free from the pressures of school and peers. I became someone I no longer recognized, and not just because of the lack of mirrors. I was someone with different goals and aspirations than I previously had. I was shaped by my environment and the friends that surrounded me at camp. I became uncertain of who I was and felt as if my personality was split between my home and camp life. That understanding that I had worked so hard to develop in myself was being questioned, and I felt unsure of who I was becoming. It was then I realized I was changing myself to fit in, to be liked, to feel wanted. I was throwing away my own identity in search of one that was more like those that surrounded me. Upon my return home for the beginning of my senior year, I decided to embrace who I knew myself to be. I decided to become the most authentic version of Sydney I could be, the one who loves calculus, even if that makes me a nerd, the one who listens to music that people think is weird and depressing, the one who joined the track team because it's something I've always loved to do, even though none of my friends joined. I am not ashamed of my passions or values anymore. It was living without this mindset of needing to be accepted that I began to lead a life that was filled with more happiness and created relationships with more depth. All this being said, sometimes it's hard to maintain this understanding of myself, especially during challenging times. One of those hard times occurred not too long ago. I sat in my friend's quad, anxiously awaiting what would be 5 rejections from universities on the same day. That day was not easy. It felt as though I gave everything to these schools, told them who I was and what I stood for, and they didn't want me. Those familiar thoughts of not being good enough came rushing back. I felt disappointed, yes, but also embarrassed that I couldn't reach the standard of what many expected from me. But it was my friends who gathered me into hugs and brought me sushi, and my parents who told me that their pride in me was not wavered by the opinions of others. It was this support that made me realize it didn't matter if these schools didn't like who I was, because people who mattered to me did. My friends did, my parents did, and more importantly, I did. My self-worth was not defined by the sincere apologies and large pool of talented applicants. It was defined by my own happiness with what I have been able to accomplish during high school and what I know I will accomplish later in life. My Harvard interviewer, of whom I remained in contact with, gave me an article from J.K. Rowling's address to the graduating class at Harvard, in which she discussed the fringe benefits of failure. Maybe my interviewer is trying to prepare me for the upcoming rejection in my inbox, but nevertheless, Rowling discussed how our identity is shaped by the person we are after failure. She touched on her fear of failure and how it led her to live an unsuccessful and untruthful life. It was by accepting that she might fail that led her to become who she is today. So I urge you, do not fear failure. Embrace it. It is failure that shows you who you are, and reveals those around you who care. Not all days are good ones. Sometimes we face rejections and failure, and it feels like your whole world could come crashing down again. I know it has for me. But we are not defined by our failures. We are defined by our actions after these failures. Who we are is the person after, the person who dusts themselves off and continues to move towards the future. So yes, I am a tryhard, and I am a nerd, and I am definitely too loud sometimes. I am no longer going to pretend that these words don't define me, because they do. But I am also the girl who loves sugary cereal no matter how bad it is for me. I am passionate about making others happy. I am my harshest critic and expect the best of myself in every situation. I am someone who you can depend on and someone who pushes you to get outside of your comfort zone and try new things. I define my own identity. I no longer let other people's thoughts and labels take control of my life. It took a long time for me to be happy with who I am, and it's a constant battle. My one piece of advice for you is to stop being a paradox. If you want to be happy, surround yourself with positive people who bring you up, and just do it. If you want to change, then change. You are not static, but a dynamic person capable of great things. If you want to be somebody, do something, make change, then do it. Don't wait for tomorrow. Now I'm telling you it's time. It's time to be exactly the person you've always wanted to be. It's time to take control. It's time to let yourself be happy, because my goodness, you deserve it. Now would you please rise and join me in singing the hymn 460?